Cognitive dissonance describes the inner state of tension that arises when a person holds two conflicting thoughts or engages in behavior that contradicts their beliefs. This state is typically uncomfortable and motivates us to either change our thinking or our actions in order to restore internal harmony. The need for consistency is deeply rooted in human psychology. People want to see themselves as coherent, rational, and morally intact. When this self-image is threatened by contradictory behavior or new information, dissonance emerges. A common everyday example: a person values honesty and sees themselves as a sincere individual. Nevertheless, they pretend to be enthusiastic about a colleague's idea, even though they privately harbor serious doubts. This small falsehood contradicts their internal standard of authenticity. To reduce the dissonance, the person might tell themselves the lie was necessary to encourage the colleague, or that politeness was more important than honesty in this case. They might also downplay their own definition of sincerity, or simply repress the fact that they acted against their principles in that moment. Situations like this happen every day. People lie even though they value truthfulness. They judge others while claiming to stand for tolerance. They buy products they actually disapprove of. They say yes even when they feel like saying no. The dissonance this creates gives rise to tension, which isn't always consciously perceived, but still has an effect. The more deeply someone identifies with a particular value, the more intensely they will experience dissonance when they act against it. In social contexts, these inner conflicts can become even more pronounced. For instance, someone may find themselves in a group setting confronted with opinions they don't share, but they nod along or remain silent out of fear of rejection. Here, too, there is a gap between internal experience and outward behavior. Dissonance reduction often takes the form of rationalization after the fact, convincing oneself that it was tactically smarter to stay silent, or that their opinion wouldn't have changed anything anyway. But it is precisely these seemingly minor, everyday moments that reveal how deeply cognitive dissonance shapes human behavior. It continually forces us to take a position, whether through self-deception, adaptation, or realignment. The goal is not to live without contradiction. That would be nearly impossible. Rather, the challenge is to recognize one's internal tensions and resist the urge to cover them up too quickly. In fact, the ability to live with dissonance and see it as a sign of inner awareness can be a form of maturity. In a complex world where moral ideals, emotional needs, and social demands are constantly in conflict, dissonance is simply part of life. It is not a sign of failure, but a trace of the ongoing engagement with what we believe, feel, and do. Those who face it can learn to look more closely, not only outward, but inward as well.